Stevenson, the Executive Director of the Department of Community Relations for the City of Cleveland. On behalf of Mayor Frank T. Jackson, I welcome you to the City of Cleveland's virtual Black History Month program. As we wind down this year's programming, we are looking at healthcare and how, as a community, can aid in strengthening Black families in their quest for equity and equality. We are still in the midst of a pandemic, but the vaccination of City of Cleveland's residents is going full scale, with both Cleveland and Cuyahoga County Health Departments joining with their partners in the medical community offering vaccination. Today, we want to look at the importance of healthcare strengthening our families and the need to trust the science while continuing to wear masks, social distancing, washing hands. A healthy community is a thriving community, and the access is key to all. Locally, Cleveland Clinic's Dr. Fred Harris is working both in the hospital and community to provide access. We welcome him to this program and look forward to his presentation. Now I welcome Isha Han, a hard-working member of our Black History Committee, to begin our conversation with Dr. Harris. Isha?
Thank you, Director Stevenson. Again, we want to extend that warm welcome and sincere thank you for tuning in to today's virtual Black History Month 2021 program. We hope you enjoyed all the previous segments where we've highlighted various honorees surrounding this year's theme of strengthening Black families through the quest of equity and equality on TV20 Cleveland's YouTube page. So I will be your moderator for today's program, and we gather today to honor Dr. Frederick D. Harris, MD, a noted specialist in internal medicine for 32 years. He has achieved the highest honors in his profession throughout his illustrious career, from valedictorian of his high school in 1977 to graduating with high honors from Case Western Reserve University, to becoming a distinguished graduate of Case Western Reserve School of Medicine in 1985. He makes no bones about the quality of medicine he practices as second to none. You'll hear Dr. Harris always say, "It is an honor and privilege to have someone place their life and well-being in your hands, and I take that remarkable statement of trust very seriously." Dr. Harris formed Frederick D. Harris, MD, Incorporated in 1989. He spent his first 16 years in private practice while maintaining staff privileges at 10 area hospitals. In 2005, he joined the Cleveland Clinic and is currently a section head positioned in Cleveland Heights, where he continues to set the bar in quality care metrics. He specializes in hypertension, diabetes, hospital medicine, and chronic preventive care. He is a traditional internist, one of the few physicians who still practices both office and hospital medicine, as well as critical care management. His bedside manner is said to be second to none. He is shown by his peers as the doctor's doctor, and his trademark is accurate, timely diagnosis and superlative care par excellence. Dr. Harris is married to his wife of 30 years, Bernice, and they have 7 children, 6 college graduates, and 1 currently in college. So you got 1 to go, Dr. Harris.
1 to go. 1 to go.
He is he is the assistant professor of Cleveland Clinic Lerner School of Medicine at Case Western Reserve University and is board certified in internal medicine. He participates annually as a speaker in Cleveland Clinic's Minority Men's Health Fair, as well as Cleveland Clinic South Point's Health Fair. He is a member of the clinic's Patient and Family Advisory Council and is also a mentor for Cleveland Clinic's Physician Diversity Scholars Program. He is a life member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, NAACP, and Southern Christian Leadership Conference, also known as SCLC. Dr. Harris was awarded the prestigious 2018 Physician of the Year at SCLC Martin Luther King Jr. Scholarship Gala and was honored with a Lifetime Achievement at a surprise appreciation dinner in May 2019 by his staff and well-wishing patients. He is current health co-chair for the Ohio NAACP, as well as the immediate past chair for the Cleveland NAACP. Dr. Harris has authored the following: The Resurgence of COVID-19, Ohio Task Force Guidelines for COVID-19, Fallacies and Inequities in Current Testing Recommendations for COVID-19, Ohio's NAACP COVID-19 Task Force Strategic Plan for Testing and Contact Tracing, the COVID-19 Research, Black communities disproportionately affected by COVID-19, the mRNA coronavirus vaccines, and the guidance for COVID-19. Such a profound profile, and I'm sure there's so much more I didn't mention. Dr. Harris, it is a pleasure and a privilege for me to be here with you today. How are you? Happy?
Fine. Pleasure's all mine too. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'd like for us to just have a brief conversation, and I just want to start with, if you could just share with our audience why you chose to work in medicine.
I chose medicine. Believe it or not, I was in the 5th grade when I made that decision. It was a thought that came to me whether I was going to be a doctor or a lawyer. It seemed to me that the doctor route was a little bit more stable, so I ended up choosing that. And both of them had to do with smarts, and I was pretty good in school. I was a straight A student for the most part, and I figured medicine I could help people more. My mom was kind of a minister as well, and I minister to people to a certain degree and have communication skills that are second to none. And I just like the fact that I could treat people with whatever malady that they're encountered with. For example, in medical school, people don't understand this, but I'm gonna tell you a little bit about it. By the 3rd year, you're not sure exactly what you want to be. I thought I wanted to be a surgeon, for example. Then as I rotated through medicine, I found out that I could help more people that way. And the people are actually yours, your patients. And so you get the chance to follow them. I have patients now that I followed, for over 30 years and so forth. And you can see the the progress over time. And you can also see that you help people and they develop trust in a relationship with you. And that is so important. That you can also see them in the hospital. So all of those components is why I think I went into medicine, to help people, and because I have this requisite skills to make sure that if somebody's sick, we can get them out of there.
Yeah, and I know with getting right into it, this year has definitely put those skills and that passion to the test. And yes, indeed. And with you being a specialist in internal medicine, I'm sure your focus has definitely expanded since the start of the pandemic. So can you describe what your daily routine has been like? Has that changed during the past year?
Yeah, actually, it has. Believe it or not, this virtual care thing is new to us, or was new at the time. It wasn't new at the clinic. They were pushing it. They had said even before COVID hit, they wanted us to be doing at least 10% of our calls virtual. At the time COVID started, we were actually doing 0. I was basically, I had to see you, I had to touch you, I had to monitor your vitals, and be able to put my stethoscope on you to feel most confident about the care and the decisions that we were making together. With COVID hit, that obviously couldn't happen. We could not have patients in the office. We went 100% virtual. First week, we went 100% virtual. The second week, and in fact, the first month, for the most part, Cleveland Clinic as a whole, I think they had 700,000 to 800,000 more virtual calls enacted during that period of time than they had the year before. And I was one of the ones that started to doing a new practice. And actually, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. It was, you get to see the patients, on the screen. I develop a different workflow, which is basically, what's going on, how you're doing, going over your various systems. We couldn't have people in the office because the risk of COVID was too high, of course. Plus, you would have to wear all kind of PPE and so forth and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So we learned to communicate with the patients on the phone. We still have the same thing that has to be done on a regular basis in terms of screening. In other words, if you're 40 or more, you need your mammogram. If you're 45 or more, you need your colonoscopy. And if you are, you still need your pap smear. You're diabetic, I still got to follow your labs. I still want to know what your numbers are. So, we got patients to start buying a blood pressure monitor and so forth, so they can at least give me some vitals so we can start with that. And if they need medications, we would go with all their medications, all of their needs in terms of what they needed. And if they needed to go to the lab, a lot of them didn't want to go to the hospital anymore. We had other Cleveland Clinic facilities that they could go to and get the lab work done without the fear of catching COVID. So it was a whole different process. And so it wasn't only me that changed, the patients had to change. But actually we were pretty good. We found out that you still get the chance to do the same things. You just have to develop as a different approach.
Mm-hmm.
We also went to the hospital. We had to wear PPE, because every patient that we see, you got to assume, for example, whether they have COVID or not, that they have COVID or they're a COVID carrier. And so that's very, very important. That's a concept that's everybody, I would think, would learn to appreciate, that anybody that you see that you don't really know, assume that they have COVID. And that way you keep your space with them, you keep your mask on and avoid the crowds and all the other good public health measures we've come to learn and appreciate and so forth. So the medicine at the hospital, everybody in the hospital are tested for COVID, period. Whether you're in there for a heart attack, you're in there for a high sugar or any other problems. But within that first 24 or 48 hours, we may not know, the test may not be back yet. So we had to put full PPE on. Then you had to come home. You had to wash up and drop the clothes at the door, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so forth. So we were right in the line of fire. So things did change. We had to embrace it. And even now we're doing, I would say, about 80 to 90% face-to-face. With that 10 to 15%, we're still doing virtual, especially with people, of course, with any kind of respiratory symptoms or anything that sounds like COVID. We don't let them in the office. Of course, we, check their temperature. There's a questionnaire. If they have, fever, chills, cough, shortness of breath, the GI symptoms, stuffy nose, headache, etc.,
Right.
they would have to be rescheduled, and we reschedule them as a virtual visit. And that's the new life that we live.
Yes. And so with you having the focus with hypertension and diabetes as those subject matters, just going deeper into, why we're here today with Black History Month and we're educating our community. So tell us, Dr. Harris, how has COVID-19 impacted the African American community, and what can we do as a community to ensure health equity remains consistent?
Well, it's of course, it disproportionately have affected our people. Black and brown communities, as you know, especially low-income communities, during the pandemic, had 5 times the chance of getting the COVID. That also has 4 times the chances of getting hospitalized from COVID. And then they have 2 to 3 times the amount of deaths from COVID. So it disproportionately impacts our people. So we have all the underlying conditions: diabetes, hypertension, obesity, high cholesterol. Well, not high cholesterol, it's not a risk factor. Cancers, we talking about lupus, kidney disease, liver disease, lung disease such as asthma, COPD. All of these conditions put us at increased risk. These underlying conditions give you 12 times the risk of dying from COVID. So a lot of these people come into the equation with these conditions not being controlled. And that's when they get sick. That takes them, tilts the balance. And a lot of times they don't make it because they come in the equation sick, and they get sicker because of the underlying conditions and so forth. What we can do as a people, and what we encourage our patient base to do is make sure you have a physician, keep up with your visits. Your preventive visits are even more important now than they were before. They say 60%, it was a drop off in 60% of people that were deferring visits, not showing up at the doctor's office. And I don't know if you guys seen last week that the life expectancy of the Black man was decreased 3 years. COVID-19 has knocked off 3 years for the Black male and to about 2.4 off our life expectancy in the Black female. So it has severely impacted our community, and a lot of it has to do with us not showing up and not doing the things we need to do to take care of ourselves. But number one is get your PCP, get your primary care provider that you have a relationship with, that you understand and communicate with, that you're comfortable with, that you, when things come up, that you don't hold anything back. When he says take a medicine, or she, make sure you take the medication. If you have problems or side effects from the medication, make sure that you let the doctors know so they can change the medication to something that you do tolerate. Blood pressure, for example, is a silent killer. So most people, they don't want to take medicine for high blood pressure because they say they don't feel anything. But it is the number one cause, underlying cause of heart disease, which is number one. It kills 1 million people a year die from heart disease every year. A million people. And also it also contributes to the number 4 killer, strokes. About 800,000 people die of a stroke every year. And then the other condition it contributes significantly to is kidney disease. So we have to control the blood pressure. We have to take our medication. They say at least up to 50% of the people, even the people who are being monitored and seen by doctors, are not controlled. We don't allow that in our practice. Our patients are controlled. We have some of the highest metrics of anybody in the country. Our high blood pressure numbers are up above 90%. So same thing for diabetes. So we have to stay on task. If you got a medical condition, whether it makes itself symptomatically known to you or not, stay with your physician and follow his plan of care. That's how we can change this equity and do better with our numbers.
Yeah. And with that, I mean, that goes right into my next question concerning the COVID-19 vaccine. As you said, with those that, taking their medicine already with those pre-existing conditions. So I just recently read an article on IdeaStream where almost 140,000 Cuyahoga County residents have received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, and about only 16,000 of them are African American. And so as vaccination outreach ramps up and continues to do so, how does one dispel the concerns and the myths about the vaccine and build confidence within our community?
Yes. Well, this vaccine, believe it or not, although they called it Operation Warp Speed, don't be deceived by the name. Every box was checked. This mRNA platform with the 2 vaccines have been granted approval under emergency use authorization. Have been around since, at least the technology has been around since 1990. They've been studied for decades. No vaccine has been studied more than this vaccine in the history of the world. So this is the number 1 studied vaccine. The people who vet this particular vaccine process are not part of the government, are not part of the drug company. They're independent data managers. They mine data. They're PhDs. They're college professors, etc. And they have Blacks on board as well. They made sure that every box was checked and that this thing was not a rush. The studies were done that held, I think it was 10% Black in both Moderna as well as Pfizer studies. So we didn't quite get up to the 13%, but it was close enough to know that we have representative sample. And up to now, I think as of this morning, 60 million doses have been administered. So it's very safe. It's very safe. You have to counter the aspect of what we need to give you in terms of this vaccine with what you get with COVID-19. If you get COVID-19, it's very unpredictable. And as we know, there's 500,000 deaths on the other side at an average of about 2,700, I think, this past week, which actually is down from before. 2,700 patients per day were dying. So it's very, very deadly disease. So you don't want to take that risk. So I say balance that risk of dying from COVID-19 or getting the complications of COVID-19 with the risk of getting a shot in your arm, where you maybe get some minor arm soreness, maybe some malaise, a headache, I think are the most likely side effects. And most of those go away in a day or so. So it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned, as far as getting this medicine, getting this extra layer of protection so you can go, this is our way out of this pandemic. If we don't push this here, we'll never get out. But now as you see those numbers coming down, a lot of that is reflective of this vaccine that has been started, I think, the middle of December.
So what are the differences in the available vaccine? Is there a difference with Moderna versus Pfizer?
Okay, well, as you may or may not know, Pfizer was first. Pfizer had a study group of 43,000 people, again, with 10% Black in their study. Pfizer is licensed to go down up to 16-year-olds, 16 and up. You can get that with Pfizer. In Pfizer, you get the second shot within 3 weeks. Pfizer has a cold storage requirement of minus 80 degrees. So it has to have a cold chain requirement, which means that that's why they couldn't just send it to the doctor's office. They had to send it to the hospital or the pharmacy. We don't have refrigerators in our office that can hold things at the minus 80 degrees and so forth. So they're doing those more centrally now. Now, Moderna came second a few weeks later. Moderna had 30,000 people in this trial. It did very good. Pfizer had a 95% efficacy rate. Moderna is 94.5% efficacy rate. Very, very good numbers. We've never had anything close to these numbers. I think the closest thing we had was measles, which is 98%. So, in other words, some people say, well, what does these numbers mean? Well, 95% means that it's got 95% efficacy, means that there's a 95% chance you never get seriously sick or ill from COVID. You never have to go to the hospital, and there's a 95% chance you won't die from COVID. So those are excellent factors. Moderna, those starts at 18 years old and up, and it's a four-week interval between the prime shot and the booster shot. What happens after the first shot, the immunity is percolating up over 50%. Actually, Pfizer just did a new study, what they say at day 28, that is almost 70, actually was 85%, because some people were trying to push just to get that one shot. But the fact of the matter, that second shot is what gets you up over that 95% range, which is very, very, very good.
So there are 2 doses. Is that what you're saying? So there's the first dose. Okay.
Right. Yeah, they call it prime and booster. So first time they get the first shot in, your body get exposed to. So what they do is inject some genetic material into your arm, so to speak. And what it does is it codes for what's called the spike protein. This is not a live virus. You cannot get COVID from it. It will not make you sick. It does not replicate in the body. Okay, so what happens is it's just think of it as a little copy machine, and it makes that little spike, that little protuberance that we see when we see the coronavirus, that little spike, the body sees it and recognizes it as foreign, starts developing antibodies to it. And then when you get that booster, that's why that second shot, you get a little bit more reaction than the first shot. All that tells you is that the immune system is working.
Now, are there side effects to the vaccine?
Yes, there are side effects, but they're minuscule comparatively. I mean, you got one hand, you got you're saving yourself from death. But the most important thing is that you might get some mild soreness at the arm site, fever, chills, malaise, headache, I think are the bigger ones. 4.5, I think, cases per million. People get a very, very rare reaction called anaphylaxis, where their pressure can drop and have to be intervened with some epinephrine, which readily reverses the situation. So those are the side effects, but that's unheard of for the most part. That most people handle it well. You have other things people talking about. Somebody took it and died, and this, that, and the other. It's not true. What's happening is people are dying every day anyway. You know, that's, I think, what's the number? 350,000 people die every year of sudden death, period. This is before COVID. 350,000 people die every day, every year, as a result of underlying heart disease. And all the cases that people were assuming was related to, well, this guy had COVID. I mean, these people were the same people that were dying. When they looked at the autopsy in a number of series, they found the person had underlying heart disease or some other medical condition that gave way to the death. And so we had to be very careful. Also, the group that we're dealing with are very, very old, elderly. And, you know, if you're 90 years old, 95 years old, I think Hank Aaron was 86 years old or something like that, you know, we don't live forever, but we can't make a causal connection just because I ate a pizza the day before, you know, I got the COVID shot and say it was a pizza that did it. No, you know, these things happen every day, and anybody that works in the emergency room can tell you that those bodies roll in whether we're in COVID or not.
And one more question concerning that, that folks always ask: if they already have the COVID-19 symptoms, should they get the vaccine while they have those symptoms?
Well, definitely not while they have the symptoms. Are you saying whether they have the symptoms or whether they've already had COVID? Well, that's two separate questions. We can address
Yes, well,
either
I'm going to
one.
say both.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. Okay. Well, certainly if you had a COVID symptoms, you don't get a vaccine. You got to check, make sure you don't have it. You may even have the flu. You don't want to ever get a vaccine while you're sick. Your body's already weakened. You don't want to aggravate anything or make something like that happen. You want to make sure you're back to normal in your best normal self. As far as a person who has had COVID, the body produces an immune response, but it only lasts for maybe 3 months that we know we have good antibody production. After that, it's uncertain. It drops off and wanes. We get much better reproduction of that immune system to where it needs to be after a person gets the vaccine. And that's why the vaccine is so strong. And that's why we want to get both doses of this vaccine to get that 95% protection. I remember when I was waiting to get this vaccine, I think they opened it up in the middle of December. I was just waiting for the call. Nobody called me yet. So by the third week, I started making my own calls, you know, and was needless to say, within a couple of days, I got my first shot, and you know, I felt so much better having that shot, that protection. Now I can walk into the hospital. I can walk into the emergency room. I can walk into the intensive care. I had a certain level of protection that can never be taken from me. And that's what I want everybody to understand and appreciate. Get that other level of protection, and then you don't have to worry about it as much.
And should we still wear masks once we've been vaccinated?
Yeah, very important. Threefold. The first reason you want to wear it because it takes a couple weeks for the body to develop a full immune response. So right after you get it, your body's still working. It's within hours to days to weeks, building up that immune response. So that was the main thing there. The what's the other question we said? I think you had a double question in there.
Oh, yeah, it was, should I register for and get the vaccine if I've had COVID-19 in the past, and should I get it if I'm currently having the symptoms?
Right. Well, if you had the symptoms, we say 90 days. If you had COVID, if you have symptoms, just wait till your body comes back to normal and ensure that it's not COVID. And if you had COVID, you want to I would say wait 90 days, although they really haven't been doing that. They go ahead in a nursing home and shoot people up within 30 days or whenever they get the needle out, which is
Yeah.
okay. They just want to make sure that everybody's covered with something that won't kill them.
Yes. So that vaccination you said is extra protection. And so that is extremely essential. And so how would you say that the vaccine helps with strengthening our African American families, and why is it essential for our Black families to get it?
Very, very important. We want to be able to see each other, hug each other, kiss each other. We're kissy people. We love each other. We love our parents. We love our relatives, and
I
so forth
do
and
love
so
a
on.
good hug.
That's right. It's nothing like it. So we've been doing that for years, and it's very important, as the minister can attest to. I'm sure that's a limitation on what he does. So it's very, very, very important that we get to there, and now we have a way out. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel. The vaccine is our way out. I tell people it's very simple. We got two lines. Ain't no in between. Don't fool yourself. Ain't no in between. It's got two lines. One line, you got 500 people or 500 deaths, okay, at a rate of 2 to 3,000 a day. Another line, you got 95% protection from from a series of two shots. 95% protection that you never get ill from serious COVID, never have to go to the hospital, and you won't die. It's such a no-brainer. And look who's in the line. I mean, we talk about the mistrust. We talk about all of the institutionalized bias, and I give you that. But look who's in the line. White America is in the line. The privilege is in the line. The rich and famous is in the line. You see what I'm saying? Believe me, they know something. And guess what? Who went first? The doctors went first. Your medical community went first. All your doctors went first. So that also should give you another layer of protection as well, or I'd say trust that we went first. We didn't, we led by example. I got both of my shots, and most of my colleagues have medical colleagues in the medical profession have gotten their shots. Some of the lower level workers haven't gotten their shots. We have to get them, answer their questions, and make sure they're comfortable in receiving the vaccine.
Yep. And so I know you said it before, but the pandemic has once again shed light on long-standing health and racial disparities. Do you want to comment on this again?
Yes, we can. I mean, the whole point is that if we sit back and let others take our seat, or we say eat our lunch, we have to be very careful there. That's what they're doing. They're taking our spot while we wait. They're taking your spot. They're getting the shot, and they're getting the protection. We the one need the protection the most. So that increases the gulf of us not getting well and closing these disparities. We work on front lines. I mean, we are frontline workers, essential workers. We don't have good insurance. Some of us, if we do have insurance, we have underinsurance. We have high copays. The medicines are high. We live in multi-generational homes where you have the father, the grandfather, and so forth, all in the same home. We get COVID, it spreads through the house like wildfire because we only have maybe one bathroom instead of two where we can space out when we do get sick and so forth. We don't have the computers. That's why a lot of our elderly are not getting the calls. We don't have the internet and so forth and so on. So we have to take that extra step to make sure that our parents, or our relatives can get that shot, help them, drive them to these shot places. I think the government is going to open up some federal pop-ups as well as these huge vaccination centers within the next few weeks. The problem right now, believe it or not, is just scarcity of vaccine. I have more people in the elderly population who really want to get this shot. I poll patients every day. I say, you ready for your shot? You get your shot ready already. Either they didn't got it, or they didn't signed up for it, or they're trying to get it. 8 out of 10 of the elderly. It's some of the younger ones are the ones that listen to a lot of this misinformation and want to wait and see and this, that, and the other. But the elderly ones, I think they're catching on. They know the importance of this here, and we're starting to see results, significant results. The long-term care population, for example, it took up to 40% of the deaths were always in that long-term care segment. Since we've been vaccinating people in mid-December, that population is down to 18%. In other words, we've cut the death rate 50% on the people that have been concentratedly vaccinated. And that's patients that are elderly. You understand, elderly, and so there is some death rate there, but that's because they're old, and it's no more in the background than it would be expected for their age.
So from your perspective, how do you foresee the lives of the African-American families in a year as we eventually put this virus madness behind us?
Well, we got to catch up. We got to catch up. A lot of us ain't been going to see the doctor. A lot of us have not been going to get our mammograms. We have not been going to get our colonoscopies or our prostate exams. If we smoke, we need to quit. But we need to also, especially between the age of 55 and 75, make sure we get our CAT scan of our chest. Lung cancer is still the #1 killer as far as lung cancer is concerned, as far as cancers are concerned, period. Heart disease is still the #1 killer. And again, high blood pressure has to be controlled, needs to be controlled. I would say over 1 million people, have high blood pressure. So we have to be 100 million people, that is, because they lowered the threshold. It used to be 140 over 90. Now it's 130 over 80. So we had initially 70 million people with hypertension. Now we got over 100 million people with hypertension. And the problem is twofold. Again, is that it's silent and you don't think it's bothering you. Two, most of our people need more than one medicine to control it and so forth. So it takes some effort to get in to see the doctor, to get in to get the medication, to get it right where the medicine is not messing with you, giving you cramps or messing with your nature, what have you, to the point where you're comfortable, as well as if you're diabetic. I think we're up over 24 million people diabetic, 88 million people are pre-diabetic, which can lead to diabetes if we don't watch what we eat and lose a little weight. So exercise and diet becomes a part there. So we can play a significant part in our own success in coming up out of this thing if we see a doctor, catch up with all of the tests that we've been having to make sure if we do have diabetes or hypertension, that is controlled.
That is insightful. See a doctor, catch up on your meds, and we can get it controlled.
And get the vaccine. There you go. So we can get in there comfortably in front of the doctor. If you got the vaccine and your neighbor got the vaccine or your friends, you guys can get together. In fact, the CDC just recently said if you had a contact and they called you and said, Isha, you were with your friend Joe and Joe had COVID, you would have to isolate for 14 days. But if you got a vaccine, you wouldn't have to isolate.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
It's a lot
you
of
heard
good
it here, folks.
Things there. That's right.
All right, Director, do you have any other questions for him? Because he has answered all of mine.
You know what? I enjoyed this conversation so much. Hey, Dr. Harris, so what do you say to the notion that some folk have said, well, they're giving out they're giving out different vaccines. Like you see the president in the line to get his vaccination. He's not getting the same vaccine as the regular citizen. What do you say to that?
He's getting whatever they had available that day. He's getting the same thing that everybody in that line is getting. And especially with the scarcity, either you're going to get one or the other. So there's no real choice there since the efficacy is very comparable. We're still talking about 95%. So now Johnson & Johnson has not been released. It's supposed to be a one-shot deal, but the efficacy is only 72%. I mean, would you rather have 95 or 72? It's 95 all day long. Get the shot now. Don't wait to get no second rate or third rate thing down the line. Don't let nobody take your spot. Get the shot now while it's available.
And Dr. Harris, we do have a question that came in. Can you mix the two brands? So can you get a first dose Moderna and a second dose Pfizer?
No, the studies wasn't based on that. And see, that's when you become a guinea pig. When you start with doing something, mixing up stuff, and the studies did not show, we don't know if you're going to get that 95%. See, the 95% was based on getting a Pfizer, the shot first, and then another shot 3 weeks later to get that with that 43,000 population, that trial. And the same thing with Moderna, that first shot and the second shot 4 weeks later. Okay, that was with about another 30,000 people, which we had a representative sample of 10,000, 10% people in that sample. So when we start mixing things, we don't know what we're going to get. That's experimentation. We want to follow the science, stay with the studies, so we can get what the studies benefits.
Okay. And were there African Americans included in the trials?
Yes, it was 10% in both trials.
Okay.
10%.
All
And
right.
they compare it to the United States where they say it's 13%. So 10% wasn't that bad. We like it to be 13%, but as you know, it's hard to get anybody Black to be in any trial. So most of the trials, in fact, have been only like 3%. They did pretty good to get 10%.
Yeah. And I know most parents are wanting to have their kids back in school. I know you focus on adults, but do you have any perspective on when we should expect our children to be included in the vaccination process?
Yes. Dr. Fossey, doing his press release on, was that Friday, he said the 12 years and up, the study should be available by the fall. The 12 years and up, the high school students, we should have that information by the fall. So we'll see. Now that's just the information. Then it has to go through the rigmarole where you have to go through the FDA and have to go through the vetting process, just like the adults did. Now he says the younger ones, the kindergarten and elementary school kids, that won't be available for at least 1 year, at least a year. So that'll be in the spring. At the earliest information we would get as far as the elementary school kids would be in the spring.
Okay. And when you say information, it's just when they just start the research?
The trials.
The trials. Okay.
They're starting now, but it has to run at least a year.
Okay. All right. Well, Dr. Harris, you are an inspiration, and we thank you for conveying those wonderful words of wisdom. We thank you for educating us on COVID-19, its vaccination, and the impact of this pandemic in the African American community. Director Stevenson, I'm going to turn it over to you to present our token of appreciation.
Thank you. Thank you, Ish. Great conversation. Thank you, Dr. Harris.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks
for inviting me.
Thank you for the work that you've done in our community. You've done a great job today. You convinced me that I need to take part, get this shot, so that we can eliminate this virus and do all we can to stay healthy. So thank you very much for this conversation today. I have the pleasure to present this plaque to you. So on behalf of the City of Cleveland's 2021 Black History Month Committee and Mayor Frank D. Jackson, strengthening Black families through the quest for equity and equality, would like to honor Dr. Fred Harris for your continued leadership and tenacity, February 2021. Thank you so much, Doc. We enjoyed you immensely today. Look forward to hearing from you real soon, and God bless you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Accept the word. Thanks for considering me. We work in the vineyards every day. Sometimes we say, well, we don't get recognized out here because we seeing patient after patient, one after another. So it really makes us feel good when we get recognized. Thank you very much.
God bless you.
And this concludes today's program. Thank you again to Dr. Frederick Harris for your service to the world through science and medicine. Thank you to our viewers for tuning in today. We will wrap up this year's virtual 2021 Black History Month celebration with our final segment honoring Dr. Jacqueline Chisholm, President of Chief Executive Officer of the Council for Economic Opportunities in Greater Cleveland. This will air live on TV 20 Cleveland's YouTube channel on Friday, February 26th at 12 p.m. Take care.
Thank you.